Have you been experiencing the pitfalls of hell, feeling like you're doing shadow work and not sure how to shift from the fear and the darkness to the light? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to share with you how and why collectively twin flames have taken on the mission to shift from the shadows to the light. Let's go! Hi, my name is Dr. Harmony. I'm a twin flame expert helping twin flames around the globe face fears, find freedom, and glow forward on fire. Welcome to my weekly Glow Show. Today's topic is twin flames chose to facilitate the 3 days of darkness. And so I want to, first off, I have to share with you a few things and also a little history of this topic for it to make sense. And the first thing I feel guided to say to you is you will want to watch this video to the end. And it could turn out to be 2 separate videos. If it does, I will direct you to the next one here because I don't exactly know how this is going to unfold. But the second thing, and that I want you to know, just like the last 2 weeks, this is an urgent message. This is also a message that I have been shown, both personally and through guidance, to probably be one of the most important messages that I have delivered through my YouTube channel to date, at least. And with that being said, a lot of people are always saying to me that, why do you only have X number of subscribers? Your channel is so important, it's so informational. And what I will tell you is that through the work I do, I've learned very early on that only people are ready for it at the time they show up. Because my information that I deliver is not all about the fairy tale of the reunion. Remember that we are twin flames that came here for a mission, and that mission must be delivered, and that it is the precedence of that, why that relationship is coming into form at this time of the evolution of the world. And so I just want you to be aware, first of all, that, if you're somebody that's surfing through here and this is catching your attention, but yet you're feeling guided to want to be move on because it's not moving fast enough for you, or those sorts of things, I want you to know that you need to be here. And if you've been following me, you need to hear this all the way through. So in that, just know, remember, I am the vessel. I allow these messages to come through me. And as I deliver today's message, I don't want it to come across as fear, because even though people are living in fear, I don't want this message to come from a place of fear-based at all. But wisdom and knowledge is power. So the more you can understand what is happening on a universal collective scale for your mission, and why you're doing all this individual soul purge that you're doing in the pit of hell that you might still be in, it's important to know why you're doing it. And I feel like, being guided with this topic, that it is an opportunity for you right here, right now, today, to flip your scale, to get off the fence, to shift on up to the next level of your ascension process. And that, when I talk about the 3 days of darkness, first of all, let's get into that. Let's start with an understanding and some background here. And before I do that, I want to say something else. Anything I have to say today is not coming based on religion. It's coming based on potentially prophecies that can be tracked biblically. And people tend to get confused that if you talk about biblical principles, that you're talking about religion. And they're 2 totally separate things. The Bible is a book of prophecies. My showing up today is a prophecy. It is a sharing of knowledge and wisdom and understanding that I've been shown to teach, and to help you understand it as you're going through this twin flame prophecy that is very biblical, that dates back to Adam and Eve, as far as the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and that being the awakening of the Kundalini, the serpent coiled up, coming up to awaken you to the tree of life, which is the wisdom between heaven and earth that we came here to unlock, to bring into form. And that is the 5D couple. Second to that, we have Jesus and Mary Magdalene as the first 3D couple in physical form that mark the connection of twin flames in 3D. And then we have a lot of things in between that. But the thing is, I just want you to know, you need to probably come into this message open-minded, open-hearted, and willing to receive. Because maybe not everything will resonate, and that's okay. Maybe you're not ready for it. But just like hear this message out. And I don't even want to say hear me out, because this is, I can promise you, this is not for me. And so let's get into the information. So what is the 3 days of darkness? So if you track it in biblical terms, the 3 days of darkness represents the end of the world, but in a way that it's 3 days prior to going to heaven or hell. It's 3 days of darkness that literally is technically tracked in the Bible. But what it will tell you is that the 3 days of darkness in Egypt was in the Old Testament, not in the New Testament. So most of what I'm going to tell you is from the New Testament, like revelations of the end of the world that it talks about. However, people have connected it to these 3 days of darkness that is not factual in the end of times. But I want to merge it into that concept because technically it is true. And the reason I say technically it is true, because we are, as twin flames, entering the fear pit of hell. We're entering the darkness to purge and purify our soul. And we're doing this collectively to shift from the dark to the light through the Ascension process. And so in that process, we are going up in enlightenment that's unlocking and tapping into the higher wisdom to bring in the truth of our higher self, so that in that process, we are rewriting history. We're putting it into the past, the old ways, the old paradigms, the beliefs, and letting go of the generational curses, the cultural conditions, the patriarch systems, and even religion. And I could just go on and on and on and on about that. But at the end of the day, when people talk about, from technically a religious standpoint, and they talk about the 3 days of darkness, they are saying that's sort of like the judgment day that has come, that says that you are to go within, you're to stay home, you are to read your Bible, you are to get off the grid, that everything's going to be off the grid and it's going to be dark. And even if you hear a knock at the door, even if it's your family member and they're whispering or they're telling you to open the door because they need in, you're to tell them no, because they might be tricking you, and it could be some, like a false person coming to trick you. So like basically, if we look at it from that standpoint, it's the wrath of time to say that you get to be appointed and basically choose heaven or hell. So when we are looking at our ascension process in a modern day terms, we are looking at this choice of heaven or hell on earth, and that it is a really very real concept. It really is, as far as what we choose. And to realize that, as we're ascending, so let's talk about the ascension process for 1 second, because I want you to know the importance of what I've been shown for 4 phases. So in the 4 phases of ascension, which I want you to know that ascension technically represents the pathway to heaven on earth through the steps of Christ, and ascending through a rebirthing process, that you come out into a resurrection, that then you move into the rapture, and then I've been shown the 4th phase of that is the reunion of twins. I've also, in my book, Twin Flame Codebreaker, have talked about prior connections of twin flames connected to their mission biblically to bring this wisdom into form, to also how the divine masculine technically represents Jesus, and how our chakras are called the thrones of the lower 7, and our higher 5 of the 12 chakra system are connected to the our crowns that we receive when we go to heaven. So going to heaven is going to the ascension process of the higher self, and we receive 5 crowns, and those 5 crowns represent the 5 chakras above your head, above your 7 chakras, creating the 12 chakra system, which I also talk more about in the book Twin Flame Codebreaker. And just know there's much more of all this coming in future books, because on this topic alone, I have 1 book coming just from things that I've been shown of how we are doing this collective soulful transition of the earth and basically bringing heaven on earth. And if you've been following me, you know that I've been tracking the energy of the shifts in energy of how the 5th dimensional earth, or the earth has went from a 3D plane to a 5th dimensional earth, and that we officially came to the closure of the new earth coming into place on March 20th of 2019. And now what I personally have been being shown is how we're shifting. We've been like shifting through this rapture timeline, and that the last 7 years of 2012 to 2019 is the 7 years of tribulation that the Bible talks about, how we've all been a purgatory and how we've all been in this waiting period of judgment, of seeing like what we need to let go of in order to come on through the resurrection and the rebirth and to step into the rapture, which the rapture is stepping into your divinity, your higher self, your destiny, the good, the gold, the golden city of all the rewards that you now get from having went through the rebirth, the resurrection, into the rapture, the golden city. And at the time I started tracking this, well, it's been a long time, but there was a time I was tracking some of this and being shown some of this, how it's connected to the 12 tribes of Israel and how that connects to the 12-point universal star, and how we are creating all these grid lines within the earth and doing a lot of earth healing. And I've personally been doing grid work for a long time that I didn't know, but even quite a while that I've actually tracked, and I'm learning more and more about understanding of how the grid work's working. So I want you to know that a lot of times, like when it comes to your twin flame union or reunion, that's why you're in 2 different states, or that's why you're in 2 different countries, because you're anchoring the points of energy, the points of light, the point of connection in these 2 different places within the grid lines of the universe, that is creating like healing taking place like in heaven and on earth, of pulling like all of this knowledge and wisdom together. But the cool thing is we're right here at the end, and the job has virtually been done. And now what is happening is, like through this like tribulation time coming through a closure, there really is this, what I've been seeing and I've been saying, this expansion of the heart and contrast and duality of shadow and light, and every emotional spectrum that we have from all ranges within that. And this is creating like this really wide range between us of contrast and duality. And if you've learned how to surf the wave of this both sides of you, because it's going to exist, then you're learning, and this is what I'm teaching people, to find this place between surrender and resistance that is a fine line that allows you to balance in neutrality within yourself, to stay at a place of peace and present moment, in every present moment. That's how we're going to maneuver this energy of going forward. And what people are doing is they're having trouble through the big things I'm being shown to teach people to let go of or to work on here, is the trusting yourself, your journey, the process, trusting the timing, and to know it's divine, and to stay open and allow yourself to receive, which is the feminine side. At the same token, to learn to take some action, meaning that you might need to make changes in relationships. You might need to take action in order to bring these things into form now, because your vibration has went up and it's your external reality beginning to match. And it's a really fine line to be able to do that. That's the hardest part, I should say, I guess, to be able to allow that or bring that into form. And, you know, as we do this, one thing I want to also make very clear here, what's happening, I'm seeing a lot of people, we're at a place of removing the veil. And this is called, biblically, the seventh seal, to reveal the higher self. So we've been going through these seals of waking up the higher self, and we're at the seventh seal. And that in that seventh seal, people are waking up, but they're feeling cloudy, they're feeling foggy, and what's happening is they're getting into these places of doubt and sabotage that is blocking them from coming on up. And when I say coming on up, I'm also like mentioning that as like tipping the scale or being on the fence between your higher self and your lower self. And how do you get on up there through this transition without being stuck into your rebirth of that old ways, the old self, the pit of hell, the purgatory, that is really our choice of heaven or hell right here on earth in this given time. And that would be our modern day resurrecting into heaven that is really taking place through this ascension process. And that this wrath or this judgment day or, this darkness is coming from a place of you choosing now that it's your choice of, are you going to stay there in that pit? Are you going to let go, surrender, trust, allow, take some action in order to flip on up to that higher self? So the reason I'm coming here mostly today is to let you know a few things about the history of what's happening to you and how that's coming from a collective scale, and to offer you some really wisdom and knowledge for you to understand that this is how big this is, really. This is like really big and what has been predicted to be here. And I've had some major predictions, major revelations, major visions, major prophecy that's come in less than 2 weeks, showing me how important this is, that I'm going to share those details with you. That's why I said listen to the end of this, because there's some details I've been put through to be shown that's going to be very important that I think could probably help you coming out of this. At the end of the day, we are the phoenix that's rising out of these ashes. And at the end of the day, when we are talking about fire, stone, and brimstone of the end of the world, we're technically talking about twin flames being the one that are creating and going through the darkness and the pit of hell to, through the flames and the ashes of that, create the beauty rising and resurrecting out of hell. And that's why I want you to understand this is so prophesied and biblical. You think that you're just in this for the relationship, or you think, what am I doing? I want you to know this has literally been prophesied of what you're going through, and you're not alone, which is another important thing, because I know a lot of you feel like you're alone out there. But if you can understand what you're going through to the level you're going through it and why, I think it gives you power to position yourself to get out of it and find peace in your present moment, which is what my goal is to help you do. Okay, so I just want to see like where this leaves me for summing this up in the history, so to speak. And then I want to share with you kind of like some things to expect, or also ways or things that can help you shift through this timeline. So one very important thing that I want to like also reference to where it comes to the divine masculine here, that also biblically I have tracked the concept and the idea of the silence of the lamb. Being the lamb, I've been shown the blood of the lamb is the sacrifice of the divine masculine in these relationships that is preventing, it is causing the separation on a bigger scale to be able to go through this purge and purification of the souls enough souls to purify the earth and the world to help facilitate the shift from the shadows to the light. And in that process, the silence of the Lamb, what that really means is that, you know, the divine masculine have gotten quiet and they went into their inward journey within themselves. And this has been like coming prophesied in order to accomplish, like on a collective scale, what we needed to do this purification in this collective scale. Now, with that being said, as I mentioned, that when we get through this tribulation of 7 years, that's where, like, if you even look at the tracking of the end of times, which, by the way, I have this book that came to me that has been in my life for 20 years, and I never looked at it. And as I was going through some of this 12 tribes of Israel and learning some of this book miraculously showed up in my basement in a box. And it has these really cool charts that really relate very well to some biblical ending of times that really are like very clearly tracking these pieces that I've been learning, and including down to the resurrection and the rapture and the golden city, that I happen to be in South America learning about a golden city at the time this came through to me in my life. And it's just really cool how those pieces show up for confirmation. But anyway, so in the process of that, what the point is that the silence of the Lamb will end at the end of the rapture, which is what we're going through with this resurrection and the rise of the phoenix and entering the golden city and coming on up to the higher self to reach that divinity, to enter our and manifest our greatest dreams, desires, and highest good. Okay, so like in that, it shows that through that process, that the return of the Lamb, the silence, the breaks at the seventh seal. And so, like, there's this whole connection, and I won't go into all of it, but I just want you to know it is there. It's a real story, and it really aligns with the return of the divine masculine, and that silence is going to break, and it's already happening. And I got to tell you, I can't tell you how many awakened people I have saw from that's woken up since November. In the portal, I said it was the peak of the peak of the peak of all peaks from November until March, where we had the universal reset. If you followed me, people are waking up since November and going from not even knowing what a twin flame is to knowing what their missions are, and also going not even knowing what twin flame is to being in union. And this, I'm seeing this over and over and over and over, which is also confirming that timeline or confirming these things. And it's really quite cool when you really look at it. So you'll want to make sure to read more about specifically this in some of the future books I have that will go into much more detail than I can necessarily do here. What I want to do here is give you a bigger overview of what's happening so you can get prepared and use this energy of where we're at right now to be able to facilitate and come on through this portal of this split, because everything's being split right now. We're going into this separation, but the separation is also creating like an opening and a new beginning. And that's what I want to talk about, what's really happening on the scale of how you can do this. And I want to share with you some things I've been shown of what that means. So I've been guided to make this 2 parts. So be sure and stay tuned and connect to the next part that you will find linked below.